It's a pleasure to have you all here for our first episode of Philanthropy on the Frontlines, a special series hosted by Philanthropy West Virginia, talking about how the impact of on-the-ground work in rural and urban communities in West Virginia, Appalachia, and across the country are making a difference. And that how philanthropy is right there on the front lines, working along with their partners, governments, nonprofits, and business and the citizens to improve our community. And we're so fortunate for our inaugural episode to host some great leaders as well as great collaborators in West Virginia. And that is from the Greenbrier Valley region of West Virginia, which is down in southeastern West Virginia, right near the Virginia border. With us today are Ann Tuckwiller, Executive Director of the Greenbrier Valley Community Foundation, and Executive Director of the United Way of the Greenbrier Valley, Erin Hurst. So welcome you both. Great to have you here, and thanks so much for joining us today and being a part of this exciting experience for all of us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Let's get started. Let's find out a little bit more about you all and what you have going on. So both of you come back with some great leadership, and you've been in many different leadership roles. So I'd love to hear from Erin first, and then Ann, just a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Hurst. I am the Executive Director of the United Way of Greenbrier Valley. We cover Greenbrier, Monroe, and Pocahontas counties in the areas of health, education, and basic needs. I've been in this role for almost 5 years now, and I came into nonprofit by way of the American Cancer Society, just out of Marshall University. Go Herd! And I started with the American Cancer Society up in the Mon County area. I was in Morgantown and worked with the Relay for Life events in Taylor and a couple other counties up in that area, and loved it. I've just fell in love with nonprofit, worked my way up through to a national trainer position with the American Cancer Society, and then moved to Lewisburg. My husband is a physician locally, and so he got a job here, and then the position with the United Way came available. So moved on to a more local organization and just am crazy about it. So we, in our regular work, we partner a ton with local nonprofits, making sure that their programs and services are well funded. And now that COVID-19 is really upon us, United Way is responding once again to the needs of our communities. And we're doing that through, again, partnerships like the one with Ann at the Community Foundation.
Thanks, Erin. Such great work, and we're so lucky to have you in the Greenbrier Valley. Ann, for you.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm wearing my gold today to represent my Mountaineers, and he's right back there.
Yeah.
So I'm Ann Tuckwiller. I'm the director of the Community Foundation. We also serve Greenbrier, Pocahontas, and Monroe counties. I am White Sulphur Springs born and bred, so this is home for me. I came to the Community Foundation world from development at Carnegie Hall. That was actually my first official nonprofit role as development director at Carnegie for a couple of years. But even though I was in the for-profit sector, my first job out of college was with Sustain You, which it was a Morgantown company, recycled American-made apparel. So although it was for-profit, very socially conscious, and so it felt like a very natural transition for me. I started at the Community Foundation in November 2018, and so I still say that that sounds like a lifetime away, but it still feels very new to me. There's a lot to learn in this particular sector of the nonprofit industry, but I love it. Rather than folks seeing me coming asking them for money, I am coming and bringing them money. So they like seeing me coming a lot more than they used to. So I have loved the opportunity to work with Erin. We happen to be good friends, so we hang out a lot. Anyway, our offices are next to each other, so this was just a really natural partnership. Our goal was the same, taking care of the same people, supporting our community, so it happened pretty easily.
Sure. So United Way, by its very nature, is quite collaborative. The work that we do is in partnership with so many nonprofits in our area who serve the needs of our communities. And just my United Way in particular, we have over 30 funded partners. And so it is just the nature of our work to be collaborative day in and day out. But the event that Paul is referring to, for any of you tuning in, probably, unless you were living, I don't know, in Japan or something, you might not have heard of this, but we had a really devastating flood in 2016. I had only been in my role for 8 months, 10 months. And everyone was like, "What's United Way doing?" And I was like, "I don't know. Tell me." And so we really leapt at the opportunity to coordinate volunteers, run a distribution center, and have partners that we had never had before. Tons of churches and the EOC and emergency management. I mean, just all these groups came together. And it's funny because not funny, haha, but you know what I mean, that we are all coming together again during this crisis. Although it's not the same, the methodology is very similar. And so collaboration just really breeds great results. And we've really, Anne and I have recognized that a ton in our work together during this time. Through the applications that we're receiving, folks are working really great together to meet those needs once again.
Yeah, and
Great.
like Erin said, unless you were, far off, the flood has, it still is, we are still working on flood relief projects, still 4 years later. But what happened after the flood and what has happened now, I think, is a perfect example of that Appalachian resiliency that we have. We are very used to taking care of ourselves, kind of joining together and just getting the work done. I'm from White Sulphur, as I said. So as everybody knows, it was devastating. I mean, we lost 8 lives in White Sulphur. I remember talking with my dad, what are we going to do? And he said, I really don't know, but I know that we're going to just do it. And it's like overnight, everybody just got up and got to work. And that's exactly how this has been. I was blown away by how quickly nonprofit organizations in our community started responding. I mean, we had a task force call within a couple of days. It was just immediate. School was closed and everybody got to work. And it is exactly what makes this industry so inspirational and rewarding to work in.
So a partnership, I guess, either in work or in life or friendships or romantic relationships, is having common interests. And to really zoom out for the partnerships that we have, the Community Foundation and United Way and all of our partners that we're working with in our communities that we serve, it's having that common interest of making sure that our people are taken care of. And so Anne and I teamed together because we wanted to do what we do best, which is rally the fundraisers. And so we have been so fortunate, and just, we wake up every day like, oh my gosh, can you believe this? Because our fund has grown so quickly due to the generosity of folks who want to help us help others who are helping others. I mean, it's just like this great trickle down effect, and it takes money to do that. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It's expensive to be helpful, but we're doing it through these partnerships of like-minded folks who want to make sure that the most vulnerable in our communities are taken care of all the time.
Yeah, and those partnerships are unique for a community foundation because we are both grantor, but then we also hold funds for so many of these organizations. They have trusted us with their money to enhance their operations. So we kind of approach it from both sides. And what has been so exceptional is that organizations that have like these tiny, I'm going to give a shout out to Rennick Community Center. They are a fund holder with us. They are volunteer based. Immediately she texted me, hey, what can I do to help you? It's just exceptional that people have this on their plate, but they want to still jump in to help. And what has been, as Erin said, we have had a lot of luck with our COVID-19 relief fund fundraising. And a huge chunk of that came from folks that stepped up during the flood that maybe spend 30 days a year here. You know, we're an area of a lot of vacation homes. And these folks still, with just an email ask, send a check for $5,000 without even thinking about, you know, they look out for us and they really don't have to. I mean, they're here a couple weeks of the year. So that has just been really exceptional to see. You know, they really care about us, and they're taking care of us, and we obviously sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah, great question. So, like you said, instead of United Way having its own fund, which would have been totally appropriate, a lot of United Ways across the state are doing that, and Anne having her own fund at the Community Foundation, we just decided that we would join efforts and have, you know, reach out to those flood donors, like she mentioned in the last question, and then also my United Way donors, and because a lot of those overlap as well. And so it just made sense. I mean, it made perfect sense to come together for this very purpose. So the groups that we have been seeing, I would say the vast majority are food related, just to ensure that our food insecure communities are taken care of, particularly with folks who are worried about getting out into the community. We have some groups that are doing deliveries and drop-offs, and just there's a lot of logistics happening that don't usually happen when times are quote unquote normal. So, so we've been helping a lot of food related organizations, churches, food banks, and the like. And then we're also ensuring that groups who need PPE can afford it. So for example, Anne is from White Sulphur Springs, and the White Sulphur Springs EMS crew asked for help in purchasing PPE because it's just an expense that they didn't anticipate, but it's absolutely something that they need. I want to give another shout out to Josh Sachs with St. James Episcopal Church. He had a vision during the flood to come up with a mobile health unit, you know, one that can kind of move around the county to health departments and medical facilities and hospitals, because none of ours in our 3 counties have one of those. So he created one, and it is so state of the art and amazing. And they're using it right now at Robert Seaberg Clinic in Lewisburg to do COVID testing. And so we're helping fund some more equipment for that. I'll let Anne speak to the educational piece because I think that really excites her. So there's some more stories along that line as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Erin. So we, as the Community Foundation, manage scholarships for our 3 counties for high schools as well. Governor Justice called schools to be canceled on, I think it was the 16th. Senior applications were due on the 19th. So while most had already gotten started, I remember being in high school. I probably would have been Sunday evening working on that application. And maybe that's not such a big deal. You know, you think everybody has internet. Well, here that is not the case. We are very rural, and then you have the, we have the Green Bank Observatory, which is exceptional, but it means that a lot of folks around it do not have internet access. So we got really worried that there were going to be seniors have missed out on so much this year. We did not want scholarships to be another one of those just because they might not be able to get internet at their home. So immediately we saw elementary schools and community centers giving out their Wi-Fi, come pull in the parking lot and work on your applications from the safety of your car. And then we believe that from the numbers of applications, we don't think that we've missed anyone really. And we have, of course, let them know that if there was an issue that they couldn't apply for accessibility reasons, to reach out to us. This is an unprecedented situation, so we're being very flexible in terms of applications. But we've also seen particularly small community libraries rethinking how they are going to provide their services during this time. So it's very natural to think of, okay, what are our immediate needs? Food, water, shelter, and in this case, PPE, healthcare equipment. But, you know, I, for one, would not be getting through this without a little entertainment to kind of escape a bit. And so we've been so impressed by our libraries and historical societies, arts organizations that are stepping up and saying, okay, how can we provide what we do, but do it digitally? And so that's another area that we are in the process of funding, is libraries purchasing more digital titles so that students that might not have a lot of books at home or might not have internet access, they are discussing maybe doing a mailing of hard copy books to homes that they know, you know, libraries know the kids that they see often. And so they're just really, everybody is thinking, not only how can I respond, but how can I respond in a way that fits what I do normally? And so that's just been really exciting to see.
Sure. So in addition to what we do with our partners through United Way, we also run our West Virginia 211 program out of the United Way office here in Lewisburg. And that covers, for us, Greenbrier, Monroe, Pocahontas, and Pendleton counties. And so we were made aware of a group of people who are in need right now, particularly because they are undocumented citizens. And so these folks they're like not in the system, so to speak. So they don't qualify for the stimulus checks, unemployment. And so those folks are a demographic that we've identified through West Virginia 211 that we can support. So through our joint fund, we had a donor who wanted his donation to go to undocumented immigrants, helping them get through this crisis. And so because that would be a donation that goes directly to an individual or a vendor like Mon Power or the water company, we transferred that donation back over to United Way to sit with our emergency assistance fund with our 211 resource hotline. So our 211 representative is fielding those calls and helping those folks. So I can speak to that demographic in particular with a program that we're initiating here at the United Way of Greenbrier Valley.
Yeah, so my mom is a retired teacher, principal. She worked primarily in schools with at least 50% low-income populations. And she said, I talked to her a little bit about these e-learning opportunities, and she said, yeah, that's great if their parents have internet. I mean, what, you know, if not, those, you know, they see a slide of students falling back just over the summer, add, you know, 2 months on the front of it, and everyone's really concerned about how these populations are going to continue to receive the education that they need. So I think that our education system is doing an exceptional job. But I'd love to see, like I said, these libraries and community centers, you know, really reaching out to, in these small towns, 3,000 people, a lot of people know the families that might need a little extra help. So it's really this knowing each other, knowing our strengths and weaknesses that allows less children to fall through the cracks, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So I love that Ann and I connected on this and are, you know, really forging a path sort of to make sure that these organizations and groups in our area are well funded and thus well taken care of. So I hope that we can be an inspiration to others who are thinking about collaborating with another organization and just haven't quite figured out how to do that or make it work exactly. And I would encourage others to consider, you don't need a crisis in order to do it. In fact, I would recommend maybe not starting it during a crisis. But yeah, just moving forward with thinking about how you can partner together, because duplication of services is a real thing. I see that as a challenge, and not by really fault of anyone, particularly not the client who is just really trying to stay afloat, but duplication of services because resources can be so limited in our state. And so see that as a challenge. Additionally, I've noticed that with the applications that have come through for us, that a lot of folks are doing tons of the same thing, particularly around food. So what Ann and I have tried to do is make sure that everyone knows what everyone else is doing. So if they can collaborate and it makes sense, then we can help facilitate that. And again, in order to not duplicate services and to just be stronger in whatever that initiative is.
Yeah, and I would also add, like Erin said, that's something that we've discussed a lot, is making sure that everyone's needs are met, but that efforts aren't duplicated so that our dollars have as much impact as possible. One obstacle here is that what comes with that Appalachian resiliency comes with a mentality of some folks being a little too proud to ask for help. So something that we saw recently, when I say that we're still doing flood-related projects, we just kind of home built in White Sulphur Springs that was a flood-related renovation. And this woman sent everyone else to the program to get their home taken care of. She was like the biggest cheerleader for the program, but she never told anyone that she was having major issues in her home, which is so inspirational. But it kind of, like I said, with that resiliency comes a little bit of, wanting to do it yourself without asking for help. So we get nervous that there are groups that are not met because no one is applying for them because they don't know that that need exists. With incredibly rural, our service area covers a big chunk of the state in the southeastern part, but the population, we have, I don't know, 45,000, 50,000 people in our 3 counties. So a lot of land, not a lot of people. So that means that there is distance between a lot of folks. These really rural living residents, we just really hope that they're getting served. And that's an obstacle that we face, how to make sure that that happens.
We love working with our supporters, our funders, our folks who are interested in making sure that our fund stays flush. Like Ann mentioned, those folks who maybe don't live here but spend some time here and just fell in love with our area and want to see it thrive. So we're crazy about people who are crazy about this area. And so I think what really, and as a donor myself, I think what really solidifies the work for me is it's so personal. And because our area is quite large, like Ann mentioned, but the population is quite small, even though the population is quite small, the needs are still great. But when we all come together and someone says on a call, oh, I'm looking for, a farmer who has extra potatoes or something, whatever the case may be, it's like someone knows someone, and it's not even 6 degrees of separation. It's usually like 2 or 1, and so all those sweet little small town connections have really helped us at United Way, and I know at the foundation, and together with our joint efforts to be able to be the most impactful, because we have these great connections of folks that we can just call up and ask or shoot a text to and be like, hey, do you know so-and-so? Or like Ann mentioned, the woman from Rennick just reaching out and saying, how can I help?
Yeah, and I think that what is so special about our area, and I'm sure that it's not exclusive to just us, but a very rural living, again, Appalachian community, is that it's not really about us. So we love doing the work that we do, but we know that the end goal is about the people that we serve. So we're able to put aside our, everybody comes to the table with a different idea of the best way to do things. To us, really what matters is that it gets done. It's not so much about how or who had the idea to do it. So that's something that's really special about our community as a whole. It's so collaborative, I think, because people have a similar end goal in mind. And so it's really about making sure that everybody's taken care of. That is something that is, I come from a small business family, so I know what my dad paid himself at the end of the year after he paid all his bills. And so I've been really concerned about the small business landscape in our area. Like you said, in rural communities, we don't have a lot of chain anything. You know, most of our businesses are family owned. What I have been so inspired to see is just folks adjusting their business model just on the fly. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. You know, I've seen a lot of folks starting e-commerce sites. I mean, that have never had to have it before, and they did it quickly and efficiently. My friend Diva at Wolf Creek, she started doing packages where you know, you basically buy a bag and she does a little shopping for you of what would be, you know, in your size. And we were texting, well, I think I'll fit. You know, people are being really innovative in their ways to best serve. And I think what has been really inspirational to me is, I got to be honest, like you said, I think I've said White Sulphur like 4 times, but it's where I'm from and it's what I have a lot of experience with. We have had a bit of a small business boom since the flood. I mean, we didn't just recover, we are on the precipice of thriving. And I got so scared that this would set everything back. Driving through town just the other day, buildings are being painted and folks are putting that, like they are opening their businesses still. And so I have been really inspired by, again, that resiliency. I think it's just ingrained in that. I think that's just who we are. That being said, I am concerned about who is serving the small business community. You know, we get a lot of applications, like Erin said, we are, and thankfully so, everybody wants to feed people. I mean, and it's wonderful because that is as essential as it gets. I wish I saw more programming and support for the small business industry. And I think it's just because this is so new, nobody really knows what exactly to do. I mean, we never shut down Main Street before. So I love to see Senator Baldwin. We had pretty quickly formed a COVID task force. He saw this need. Okay, we need to form a subgroup for small business support, and they met for the first time this week. So it's been really exciting again to see that resiliency, but with a little fear. I'm nervous. You know, I'd love to see how many folks are buying gift cards. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've bought things that I don't even particularly want. I just wanted to get some money into these businesses. And so I see that mentality across the board. I just hope it continues because there's so much unknown still about this situation.
Right. Yeah. And to Ann's point about folks adjusting their business model, I am an eternal optimist, but I also have to say up front that I am not a business owner. So I don't know firsthand the struggle, but I see it, right? And I'm a consumer, and have purchased a lot of takeout since this pandemic started. So I am hopeful that with their changes in the business model, that they'll be able to stay afloat long enough that when we are back to whatever back to looks like, that they will take what they used during the pandemic and add that to their business model, if it makes sense, if it's applicable, you know, like these curbside pickups and personal shopping and that sort of thing that will maybe drive even more revenue in ways that they didn't need to think about before they had to think about it. So it remains to be seen, of course, and we'll be here in whatever capacity we can to help our small business friends.
So, like I said, that example of Cheryl at Renwick Community Center texting me, asking me what she could do for me. I'm like, you know, Cheryl, I'm supposed to be helping you. I mean, thank you so much. But it's a character of our people. But it's also, we've seen that we can do this before. You know, this situation's a little different in that not everyone was affected directly by the flood. This affects everyone. And yet people are still stepping up and coming together to help. So I think that it speaks to, you we have a little experience with disaster recovery, unfortunately, but fortunately, because we know that we'll get through this too. We figured out what worked, what didn't, and we're, just moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll continue to move forward thinking about partnerships and how, as sort of the folks who are the fundraisers in the community, because again, these things cost money, how we can be helpful, and especially finding the pockets, like you were saying, Paul, about some even more vulnerable populations, or like Ann was mentioning, folks who are a little too proud or humble to reach out, or who say things like, there's so-and-so who has it worse than me. So really being creative and thoughtful about how we can reach even further into our communities to get everyone, to make sure that at the end of the day, we are all complete and whole, and that we are better off than we were before we started. So I'm loving this partnership, and I hope that we can continue with more partnerships and inspire others to do the same.
Well, thank you all for sharing your generosity of spirit, your generosity of time, but also all that you're doing to really help us kick off this first part of our series about philanthropy on the front lines, and how philanthropy in West Virginia and Appalachia are building partnerships between rural and urban communities. Again, Erin Hurst from the United Way of the Greenbrier Valley, and Ann Tuckwiller of the Greenbrier Valley Community Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.